So, welcome back to Sound Bites, the show about good people doing good things in the local food and drink industry. Earlier this week, Family Business Association Atlantic celebrated the achievements of three remarkable women of the Nova Scotia wine industry at an event held at Brightwood Golf Course in Dartmouth. The event was titled Women in Wine Blending the Family. So, the women being celebrated were Geena Luckett, owner and general manager of Luckett Vineyards, Beatrice Stutz, CEO of Pré Wines Limited, and Ashley McConnell-Gordon, Vice President of Operations of Benjamin Bridge. So to moderate the discussion, I've invited Sommelier Kristin Perrin, who's recently transplanted from Ottawa to the Annapolis Valley, to kind of lead the discussion about with these great women of the wine industry of Nova Scotia about their roles and about their family. So over to you, Kristin.
Thank you very much, Mark. And hello, everybody. I've met some of you and I know of some of you, so I'm looking forward to meeting you in person and learning more from you. First of all, congratulations on the awards. That's pretty awesome. Female leaders in the industry. It's an honor to be here and to learn from you. So you'll probably hear from me again. I have some questions I formulated. They're just kind of general. Please feel free, whatever you're willing to share or not share. If you have something that you haven't been asked before about family business, please feel free to share with the audience. So yeah, I guess without further ado, I'll just jump in. So maybe just a quick recap from each of you. We've got Geena Luckett, owner and general manager of Luckett Vineyards, Beatrice Stutz from Pré Wines, and Ashley McConnell-Gordon, Vice President Operation of Benjamin Bridge. And maybe just a quick recap, and maybe we'll start with you, Ashley, of your family business story for maybe the audience that doesn't know the full story, and how it's played a role in your business life.
Awesome. Well, it's nice to meet you virtually today. I think I have to kick it off by saying I'm one part of a twin duo. So my sister, Devon McConnell-Gordon, is also receiving the award on Thursday. So we work together at Benjamin Bridge, and our story is one of the unexpected. Even though our parents had, in 1999, started the idea of Benjamin Bridge in the Gaspereau Valley, Devon was off, at that time we were in high school, and then headed to university. And it wasn't really until 2009 that Devon and myself stepped back into the project of Benjamin Bridge when our mom passed away from cancer. So she has a master's of architecture. I have a law degree from Dalhousie, and we were kind of off on our own paths. But after a decade, so my parents started in 1999, and then a decade later in 2009, we were just getting ready to release our traditional method sparklings. And so with the passing of our mother, there was a significant gap in our operations, and that led to Devon and myself becoming involved full-time. And we say that we thought it was going to be for a few months, but ultimately it's been close to 14 years, and our team has grown significantly. So our family business is very much the Benjamin Bridge family now, with a lot of dedicated, wonderful people on the team.
Oh, yes. You can feel that when you walk through those doors. Absolutely. And how has it been working with your sister, since we're going back to the family role?
Do you want the truth? No,
whatever you want to share.
We're such opposites, and in some ways that's fantastic because we complement ourselves, and her design and aesthetic is really felt throughout the Benjamin Bridge brand. And then my, I guess, more business-minded side, I get to fulfill. And so it works really well. But we definitely have, different approaches. And so it's always about finding kind of a compromise and ultimately relying upon a shared vision for what we want to see, Benjamin Bridge's impact look like in rural Nova Scotia. And that we're fully aligned on. So ultimately, the little stuff that feel like big stuff, when you pull it, back out and zoom out, we get through it.
Yeah. That's important, right? It's maybe easier with family, or
I don't know. I know some people say that, and I think it can be easy, but I think the truth of it for our family, at least, is that it comes with a fair bit of, challenges, and you have to park the business and remember your sisters when you're in family situations, and, find a way through.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. That's beautifully put. And I noticed on the website, there was just a note on your parents being advocates and workers for gender equality, which of course you can feel that in the winery. So just wanted to, bring note to that and ask how that shaped your work ethic.
Yeah, so I've been thinking about that because for sure, I don't know if Bea and Geena would agree, but I personally didn't think about myself as a woman in the wine business when I kind of stepped into it. It's only, many years later, as we've seen this transformation of more women in the wine business, and not just in, and it's not to say just, but in hospitality, sales, and marketing. We have women winemakers, some that have been in the industry for, a couple decades now, but also field quality managers. And on our team, multiple winemakers are women. So as I've seen that transformation across all departments, that's what's really highlighted for me, something that I think happens because of women-led operations, and so I do think it's a special thing. Our industry's small. And I think everybody on this call probably read a statistic that women representation in the industry across North America, there's strides, but it's not at the level of Nova Scotia. When you look across our industry, I mean, Geena, Beatrice, and myself sit on the board of Wine Growers Nova Scotia, and that's 4 out of 6 on the board are women. Our executive director is a woman. And so there's just been a real shift, I would say, over the last several years that highlights how powerful women are in our industry.
The matriarch is here.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much, Ashley. That's really some great thoughts to think about. And I will turn it over to Geena if you'd like to. Hi, Geena. Hi. I know we've gone back and forth a little bit, and I'm looking forward to coming into your winery and learning more. But perhaps you'd like to share a little bit about your family story and what's it like working with your folks and all the good stuff.
It's interesting for sure. Family business is not always the glamorous, maybe so great experience, but lots of learning curves and lots of successes and exciting parts about it too. We're relatively small in terms of the family engagement that we have at the winery. It was my parents bought our farm back in 1999. And at that time, my dad still owned some specialty grocery stores, Pete's Boutique. And kind of the intention was to plant pretty much everything that you could imagine that grows in Nova Scotia. My dad wanted to plant it and grow it and sell it back to the stores and have this operational farm. And it's a funny family connection actually here. It was Hans Peter, Beatrice's father, who became friends with my dad, and they were in this men's cooking club together. And it was Hans Peter who kind of planted the seed in my dad's head that, why don't you grow some grapes? You're so interested in wine. You've got a passion for that. It was at that time a pretty new industry and not a lot of grape growers and wineries happening at that time. So he planted some grapes, and that kind of led this bright idea and dream to have a winery on the property. So it wasn't until 2010 when we made our first vintage. And at that time, I was still doing my undergrad at Dal and was involved in the horse industry, and kind of prior to that had not had any interest in the grocery store business. I had spent my childhood working in the stores and realized it wasn't really for me. And that if I wasn't going to be in it 100% and passionate about it, I didn't want to be involved with it at all. And so fast forward to 2011, when we actually opened the winery for the first time. And I thought to myself, this is something that I could be interested in. At the time, thinking that it was going to be this really glamorous lifestyle, acreage of acres of vines and doing wine tastings and private dining. It sounded so amazing, and it turns out it's not that glamorous.
Living, breathing it, eating something. No rest for the wicked. No.
Yeah, pretty much. So in 2011, when we opened, I was just very part-time, still working my full-time job in the city, and then just helping out with the farmers markets and kind of seeing what it was all about. And in 2012, our events manager at the winery at the time was moving on to another job, and So I thought that that was a great way that I could kind of introduce myself to the business and to the industry, and get a feel for if this is something that I truly would be passionate and interested about. And my dad made me apply for the job and interview just like everyone else. And ultimately I did get the job. So thank
No
God.
nepotism there, no.
And then I've just worked my way around the different departments. I spent a harvest with our winemaker. I've spent some time pruning in the winters out with our vineyard manager and restaurant manager, tasting bar manager. It was really important to me and to my dad that I learned kind of all aspects of the business. And we've had, family involvement. A couple of my dad's sisters have worked in the business. A couple of my sisters have worked in the business, and my mom's very involved on kind of the back end. I joke she's like the mediator and the therapist of the company. So couldn't do it without her as well. But as far as the day-to-day goes, it's just myself and my dad. And as much as I think that's easier in many ways because it's just two of us and we're not having to balance a lot of family maybe opinions or personalities, it also, I think, is a lot of pressure. For anyone who knows my father, he's a very big personality with a very specific way of doing things and doing business. So it's been definitely a journey following in his shoes and trying to make a name for myself, but it's one that I wouldn't give up for the world. And as Ashley said, the Nova Scotia wine industry, I think, is progressive in so many ways, and we're able to be that way, I think, because we have started out so small, and really in the grand scheme of things are quite small. And I think a lot of that progress has been enabled because of the women that are involved in our industry at really high levels. So I'm really proud to be a part of that shift that's maybe happening in the greater wine industry around the world, and really honored to be colleagues, but also call Beatrice, Ashley, and Devon pals too. So.
Oh, that's lovely. Thank you, Geena, for that. I would say, being new here and working coast to coast, there's an energy here in Nova Scotia that is unlike any other. And it feels like there's no room for ego in the industry. It's just really about, sustainability, of course, being at the forefront and being progressive. So very interesting. And I did watch your father's, a little mashup of the videos that he used to do on the CBC. Will there be any kind of modern version? Like, are you going to go on and do any videos like that for your wine? I'm kind of half joking, but
I have, been brought up
a little retro,
I'm more of the behind the scenes. That's where I really thrive. I love organization and structure and making it all happen. I can turn it on when I need to turn it on, but I'll never, I don't think I want to get into that because I feel like there'll always be a comparison, and you just can't compare with that. He is the customer service king, and he's got the gift of the gab, and I'll let him hold on to that.
So generationally speaking, what do you think your role has really become for you here as the new generation and the female leader, being behind the scenes, if you have something to add to that?
Yeah, I think it's maybe my involvement is quite different than how he ran the business. I have a very different approach, and I think that combined our skills and kind of techniques and experience really complement each other. And I think that because I had him to bring me along in the business, and he's been my mentor, and he has really taken on a lot of the what happens around the winery, it's allowed me to also be really involved in Wine Growers Nova Scotia and be able to put myself out there in other areas that maybe are more involved from an industry perspective as opposed to just our winery, which has been really nice.
Nice. Full industry advantage. That's awesome. Well, thank you very much for that. And last but not least, Beatrice, you work with your family and your husband?
Yeah.
Double whammy.
That's incredible.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, you should talk to my doctor. No, I'm just kidding. The wine industry, there's always more wine, right?
Yeah. Exactly. Make low ABV ones too. So
yeah.
So a little bit. I mean, I've done a little research, of course, having written something recently and learning the correct history. But feel free to share your family business experience.
Okay, well, thank you, Kristin. My dad, it was a little bit similar how the winery started, I guess. Maybe not similar, but the big factor for my dad to make the plunge, having been in Switzerland, he was in the finance industry. He did some business here with a client of sorts, and the lawyer that was involved at the time, he said to my dad, now, I have a project for you. And he told him about this winery that was for sale at the time. My dad came home. This was in, I'm going to say in the early 90s, 91, something like that. And he told us that he learned about this winery and that he would be really interested. At the time, my mom was also very ill. She also had cancer. She did pass away in 92, which I think was a bit of a catalyst for my dad to make that final decision to say, okay, I'm going for it. On top of that, though, he did talk to my brother. Jörg was also he had a business degree. He worked at a bank and was really young at the time, just turned 21. 22, wait a minute, 20, 21, something like that. Anyway, my dad said to him, would you consider winemaking and grape growing if I buy this winery in Canada? And Jörg said, sure, why not? Myself, at the time, I had a college degree. I was in the pharmacy industry at a drugstore. I had a 4-year apprenticeship under my belt. I was working in that. But my dad says, oh, well, we could open a restaurant, we could do weddings, and we could do all these things. And I was gung-ho for that. I said, yeah, sure, I'll do that. So long story short, he did buy the winery. Fast forward, we opened our doors in 2000 with the first vintage that we sold was 99. It's kind of cool how some timelines kind of just cross over with the other two wineries. So we started in 2000, very much as a family business. You know, my then ex-husband was the chef, and my brother Jörg, the winemaker, his wife Cecilia, who happened to have the exact same profession and graduated the exact same as I did, but we didn't go to school together. She is a couple years younger than me, but so we all moved here from Switzerland in 2000 and opened the winery. You know, over the years, there was many challenges. Family business, the lows are really low, but the highs are really high, and it's a constant work in progress. Having somebody as proud and strong as my dad, he's so relentlessly passionate about the industry that it was hard for us to keep up sometimes. And he certainly is the visionary, and he always came up with new ideas, and but he came up with the ideas, and then he passed it on to us, and then we were expected to run with it. So that wasn't always easy for us, and so, but we've kind of found our way. We managed to not kill each other yet. And
got to sleep with one eye open, though.
Sorry,
you have to sleep with one eye open, though, do you?
Well, no, I don't. I think we're past that stage. Yeah, there might have been times. Yeah, but. Just like Ashley, I look at our team and the staff that we have, and we've, it's one big family. I often joke that we adopted them all because they're all family now. Some have been here for a long time, it's just wonderful, and it allows us to grow and kind of, pass on the passion we have to our staff and empower them to make a difference as well. And again, it's a constant battle, and you have to work on it day in and day out. But where Jürgen and I get along really well, I think, not always, but the main thing that was important is that we each had our responsibilities. He was from day one. He was the winemaker. He looked after that. And then Cecilia, she runs the wine shop, and, direct to consumer sales. That's very much where she is. And then I was definitely involved in the restaurant. That was kind of my baby. And so I think having very defined roles from the beginning was important. We always had to come together and, discuss the bigger picture amongst each other. And of course, that's where sometimes things weren't always aligned, but in the end, we learned to pull together. And so here we are, season 24 just started. So yeah.
Congratulations. I mean, really, that's you didn't just start a business in your where you grew up. You came to a new land to start a new business, which is pretty admirable. And so did you have support along the way? Did the government, this, I guess, kind of an open question for him, did you find that there was government support in helping you get set up? Any messages to any new female entrepreneurs coming into the industry, whoever would like to take the lead? Open forum.
I actually wouldn't mind saying something. So coming from Switzerland, my dad was very, how do I say that? A bit old school. So very Swiss, very proud man. He knows everything and best. And when the mentality of starting a business is very different here than it is in Switzerland, or it was at the time. I don't know how things have changed, but when he came here, he wasn't really aware, and that was a lack of doing the research. I would say at this point, I would start differently. If I ever would start again, I would start a completely different and would do all that research and see what is out there. But I learned so much in the past 20 years, how to approach this. So we didn't have much for government support due to the lack of knowledge. And really, it was due to, and I'm not blaming anybody for it, not my dad for sure, but it's just that pride that wouldn't even, he wouldn't admit to ask for help or to see if he could get money to do certain things. He just was of the mentality that he had to bring the money and just do what he could, which, has put us in very sticky situations over the years, where then over time, when Jason came on board, for instance, he was instrumental in saying, guys, you need to reach out and see what funds are out there. So it certainly has changed how we look at the business and how we approach things now. Before we tackle a big project, we're going to see how can we finance it and what help is out there, right? So my advice to anyone starting a new business, whether it's in a country that you didn't grow up in or not, but do the research, hire people who know what they're doing. It's worth it. And reach out to government or, do the research on what programs are out there and get what you can. It'll just help, and do the math. Like have somebody help you, have somebody that knows finances and that can help you, because that's really hard. That's a tricky one.
The business navigators, I'll be calling them this week. Ashley, Geena, do you have anything to add or contribute?
Ashley, do you want to go?
You go. No, that's great.
My moderating's.
I would say one thing that I'm really proud of, and I think is a really great resource, is as far as the wine industry goes, I was not expecting it when I came into this business, how collaborative and how much information sharing and support is available through the different wine owners and wine leaders in the area. So, that's something that, I've reached out to Beatrice and Ashley all the time, asking for advice or suggestions or feedback. And they've been really positive and have helped me along the way. And I know that there's a lot of leaders and business owners in the industry who are very open to just chatting. What are the challenges they experience? What are the resources that were available to them? So that is definitely something that, as a starting point, I would say, just talk to people. And then as far as, navigating potential government help, Wine Growers Nova Scotia, if somebody is looking at opening up a winery or becoming a grape grower, either reaching out to Wine Growers Nova Scotia to inquire about membership, or Grape Growers Nova Scotia, those are two organizations that do so much for their members and can really lobby and provide information and government resources. We are stronger as a group than we are as individuals. So, anyone, depending on what kind of route they were going, whether it was a grower route or a winery route, I would suggest definitely becoming a member and accessing resources that way.
Oh, that's great to hear. Ashley, do you have anything to add to that?
Oh, I just echo everything that was just shared. So, Geena and Bea, they nailed it. So nothing further, just to say collaboration is key. Knocking on doors is key, and not being afraid to say you don't know. Because I think I've seen, I think with openness comes opportunity. So keep the dialogue open wherever you can.
Yes, I think communication, this is probably something across the board in navigating family business. Communication, clear and concise, I'm guessing, has to be not always perfect, but that's probably one of the only ways to get through is to communicate. So speaking up when you need help. To your point, Beatrice, like your father, if a certain generation, if he had been able to speak up, it might have made things different for your family. But very interesting points. Thank you. Did anybody else have anything to add? Anything that's kind of coming up as we're chatting? I don't want to take all of the time here. Okay, this is a fun little, I don't know if you're on board with this, but it's been documented that women have better sense of smell than men from time to time. Do you feel like there are advantages that you have being a woman, a sister in the family? Do you get to speak up on the wine tasting? I know the winemakers are in charge, but in terms of your perspective, do you think that changes or helps, or do you agree with any of it? Whoever would like to jump in.
Oh, I still agree about the nose. That is the one thing. My palate, I wish that I had a great palate, but the nose, I agree with, and I think back to my mom too, when we were just entering the industry. And I remember she had all of the, I don't know if it's 400 different smells, and we were learning, and anyway, she had a great nose as well. So I'm going to go with the fact that I agree. I think women have a great nose. And I know from our head winemaker has been with us since 2007, and he's like a brother. And so I guess the one thing I wanted to share is just that Benjamin Bridge, we have 75% of leadership would be women, or folks who identify as female, and then 65% of our overall team. But then we have these incredible male counterparts that just love being in an environment surrounded by, our strength and our perspectives. And so, yes, I would say that the winemakers are always up for us to kind of get in on a tasting. And in fact, tomorrow we'll be doing our vintage blending session. So I'm based in Calgary, but for a few reasons this week, and really looking forward to a blending session with Jean Benoit and Aaron and Alexis. So they welcome it.
Exciting. Have fun with that.
Thank you.
Geena or Beatrice, do you have anything to add in terms of sense of smell?
I don't, again, my palate also not the greatest. I like what I like. And sometimes I have to get talked off the ledge a little bit by our winemaker to say, we can't just make everything to your taste. There are other taste profiles.
You're like a counter. Come on.
I will say though that although that is I think a scientific proven statistic, and I'm all for that, I'll say there's many other attributes that the different perspectives. When we're sitting down with our winemaking or vineyard team, it's maybe there are different things that we can point out on smell or palate that differs between us, but I find that the perspective that I come into it with often is quite different than maybe what the winemaker and the vineyard manager, and in large part because of my position in the business versus theirs. But I think a lot of it comes down to my way of thinking, perhaps as a woman, and the way that we maybe navigate things a little bit differently than they do. And I think that is a really complementary kind of approach to tastings and decisions around different wine and wine products.
Nice. Good to have an alternative perspective. Beatrice, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think I also agree, and it is proven that the nose of a woman might be better. But in my case, I always I'm the only one that gets bothered with smells in general. So at home, if something doesn't smell so good, and I have 3 boys, they're playing hockey, and so I am very sensitive to smells. Which then in turn can be very beneficial when you can pick out these things in wine tasting. And yes, the same here. We have a very mixed winemaking team, and I always feel very special when they call me and say, "Oh, we're trying a couple versions of this, whatever we're doing," and they ask me to come and taste with them, and so I love that. Yeah, I have nothing to add, really. It's whatever you.
You're blessed.
Yeah, but I'm usually the one saying it doesn't smell so good in here, or oh, it smells really good. Where the others go like, what?
That reminds me of one of the tasting notes an old colleague from the wine shop in Vancouver came up with, which was taxi sweat in one of the wines. It must have been a really meaty wine. So maybe hockey bag.
Yeah, there you go. Wet socks,
Wine, yeah. Some Brettanomyces in there. Mm-hmm. Well, I don't have anything else, I don't think. And I don't know if we're running out of time, but if anybody has anything to add, please feel free. Well, thank you, each and every one of you. I really appreciate you sharing your stories and, opening up a bit of family business, the reality of it. I think it's very admirable. I love my father. I can't imagine working with him. Sorry, Dad, if you ever see this. But I think it's really amazing, and I think it's very inspiring. And congratulations, and keep on keeping on, as cheesy as that sounds.